Welcome back to Navigating Special Education. I'm Rochelle Armstrong, founder of Liberated Hands. Today we're doing something a little different. So much of the conversations around autism and special education is shared from a mother's perspective. But fathers, they have their own story and it's worth hearing. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, a father who's walking this journey every single day. Thank you for being here. Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your relationship with your child.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adrian Armstrong. I am 47, soon to be 48. Um, my first and only child. I had him at 40, so I wasn't a young father. In my spare time for recreation, I like to play soccer. I've always played soccer all my life. I enjoy traveling to watch soccer and track and field. Um, and I still play actually to keep in shape, stay healthy, and those are my passions or the thing that I like to do when I'm not work or when I'm not hanging out in the backyard playing with my son or traveling with family.
Okay. So you mentioned your son. I am assuming he's the one that's on the autism spectrum.
Yes,
So
my son
tell
is
us
on
a
the autism
little tell
spectrum.
us a little about your son.
Um, Aiden is 7 years old. Um, he was diagnosed at two. We, myself and my wife, we had him checked and was diagnosed pretty early, so we were able to start this early intervention from a very early age, um, and that was a key factor. Um, Aiden is a pretty adventurous young man, so much so that he's what the word is used in the space is self direction, where once he wants something or he believes he can do it, he just goes ahead and dives right in. If he can do it, or if he believes he can do it by himself, he's not going to even ask. Um, so adventurous is putting it quite mildly, but he has come a far way with his communication and loves the water, loves to play. Needless to say, loves electronics as well. Which young which young kid born in the last 10 years do not?
Okay, so let's go back from the beginning. Let tell us when you first learned about Aiden's diagnosis. What was going through your mind?
Um, so I like to believe I'm pretty pragmatic. And every father, when they first find out you're having a son, they're super excited. You feel like you could mold it into a mini version of yourself. Um, so upon first receiving the diagnosis, it threw me off a little because it's unexpected, right? You know things are going to be a bit different. I played soccer all my life. I'm eager to teach him how to play soccer. So it just took, I like to say, I think I said earlier, I think I said pretty pragmatic. So I didn't get um, emotional or overly about it. Once I found out, I just sat down and thought, what did that mean? Um, how was that going to impact our relationship? How was it going to impact him as a child? And it was obviously I've never, again, it's my only child, so I didn't have any experience at raising kids at all before, so I didn't have anything to compare it to. So it was, I don't know, it was more in my head.
Did,
It was a journey, and
okay.
without much expectation.
Did you already suspect something? Like before you got the diagnosis, did you suspect anything? Were you confused when you heard the diagnosis? Were you scared?
Scared, definitely. Um, I there was minor suspicions because when you're a parent, you go around other parents with their kids at the same age, and you see the communication, but you don't realize until you have something to compare it to. When if you had other kids before, then you would know the benchmarks. But I didn't know, so and I'm like, wait, why that kids sound like they're an adult and about to enter university just with their communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Aiden was still not really understanding, and even the words that he uses sometimes, the prepositions, they're out of place. So he kind of struggled with that from then. So there were small signs. It wasn't anything major because physically he was fine, he was active, but it was more along the understanding,
And the
communication,
communication.
where he fell short. So with that in mind, it seemed that something was off. So we I checked out.
I remember that season. Even though we're walking together, I think we each experience it a little, a little differently. I think moms and dad often process things, different. How did you personally handle receiving the diagnosis? I think that's something, a lot of fathers will relate to. You mentioned earlier that you knew, little things, you saw little things, but how did you personally handle receiving it?
So from years prior to having a child, I always um, um, thought about it. And just like in sports or anything in life, you have to almost um, what's the word? You have to almost think it into being, right? You're playing football, you see yourself scoring a particular goal. I play cricket as well. You see yourself making a play. You play basketball, you see yourself in a big moment. And similarly, when I thought about having a child, I saw myself. What was I going to be like? I admit I've always been pretty impatient on the football field. So that is something I spoke into being. I thought about it for years prior to having a child. Like, it's something I need to work on. Patience, patience. And this was before anything, right? So once he was born and I was taking him out for walks and stuff. Before anything, when he was just nothing was suspected, I my patience, I think, was something that I'm very proud of. And when we got the diagnosis, it just meant that I have to take it up a notch, right? With being patient, and I think I've not struggled with that at all.
Okay.
My what I've struggled with is more when I should be a little bit more um, um, disciplined and not be as loose, for lack of a better word, or not be as patient because
Okay.
made a mistake about it. Um, Autistic or not, kids are kids, and they sense when you give them an inch and they take a mile. So they know exactly what they're doing. But I have opted to err on the side of caution that maybe they just don't understand, although I feel like he does. So
Yeah.
but that's how I've been addressing it because um, to use an analogy from my work, um, it's better to let 100 men free than to imprison one innocent man. 100 guilty men free than to imprison one innocent man. So similarly, it's better to get it wrong 100 times where he's been manipulating you than
Hmm.
to get it wrong that one time where he's not, and you chastise him or you are impatient with him when he really doesn't understand. So that's really been my motto.
Okay. That has to do with, a balance and discipline, how, because that can be challenging with children on the spectrum. Parenting definitely has difficult moments, right? But it's also filled with, moments that remind us why, we keep going. Was there ever a moment when you felt you couldn't fix the situation? As a father, I know, men probably, believe or want to fix everything. But was there ever a
Well,
moment?
there have been many moments, and that's where, thanks to you, I've deferred on many occasions where you have said to me, you can't, like, don't pull him, don't do this, where the way that you deal with him is a little bit different or a lot different. And when he's in a tantrum or he doesn't want to do something, and it simply means to just stop and um, give it a break for 5 minutes and then try it again when he's calm, and it will work. That's something that took me a little bit of time to get to
Time.
understand, right? It wasn't difficult, but it's not your instinct, because your instinct is
Right.
that they understand, right? Your instinct is not that he doesn't understand, and so that. But you were a lot better at that, and still are, or still is, and but I've gotten better at that as well. So that's what I've done. I mean, you have helped me figure that out with regards to understanding how to deal with it.
You mentioned sports, and from what you mentioned, you play a lot of sports. I don't know if this would be like one of your challenge, but what has been the biggest challenge for you as a father raising a child with autism? I don't know if sports would be one of those
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
challenges, seeing that you probably won't, or maybe you will, but right now, like, you want to go play soccer, you want to take him to soccer, you want to do all that, sporting activity. Would that be one of your biggest challenge, or is it something else? Or maybe one
Definitely,
of?
definitely it is one of I've taken to a soccer game, and much younger, but even still he was about three, I think,
Mm-hmm.
four maybe, three, I think, and all he wanted to do was um run around the stadium, right? So we didn't watch 2 minutes of soccer, right? We were watching a New York CFC game, and all he wanted to do was we didn't sit for 60 seconds. He wanted to climb the stairs. He wanted to climb the seating, and walk through the where the all the vendors are. When I go to the park, I normally play on the weekend. I want to take him. I want to teach him how to play in the backyard, as though some of my other friends teach their kids, and you know we would used to go to the pool a lot, try to teach him to swim. Um, Whatever. Soccer is number one for me, but any sport would have been, and that's all of our bonding time. In
Right.
recent times, I've been taking him to the skate park, um, but he does the what can I say? Not not
He does
traditional
the
skating.
opposite of what you're supposed
Yeah,
to do at the park,
yeah. He's not
at
doing
the
it.
at
He's
the
not doing the traditional skating. Yes, he's sitting on the
okay.
skates and having fun. So you want this. Those are like typical father son bonding moments, but so there are still bonding moments, but it's just not what I would
Probably a little
expect.
different.
A bit different, right, right, right.
Right.
Um, it's
What
also
about, his future? Would that be like one of your biggest challenge? Because you worry about the future. Anything specific about the
um,
future that would be,
all right. So, so for firstly, it's whatever he's inclined to electronics and not as much games, but does his own thing. Like he's on the editing app and he edits and stuff. So whatever it is that he's into, I'm into, right? And I enjoy. Because sometimes we get caught up in ourselves, right? And we really
right.
have to identify that and understand that it's being selfish. It's really what they like, right? So I've allowed him to express himself. Um,
And that took some
my
time, right?
Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely. Um, he goes to the pool, loves the water, but when I teach him to swim, he's not interested. He just wants to do his thing, right? When I try to give him some swimming lessons again, after trying for much earlier when he was younger, that didn't work. But my fear or my desire is most importantly for him to be self-sufficient as an adult, or by the time he gets to teenage years, where he doesn't need assistance. Um, That's my biggest fear, that he's not able to go out there and be self-sufficient in the world.
Okay. Um, I would ask you like what's something about Aiden makes you smile, but based on everything that you mentioned so far, you've had a smile on your face when you talk about him. But I'll still ask you like what's something about Aiden that makes you smile every single day. I mean, you've been talking, like I said, you've been talking about him and you've been smiling. So is there anything in specific that you didn't mention before that you want to share with
Uh,
us?
you know, so we are, he's a lot more um connected to his mom. Um, Whatever we do, he don't want me to do it. He wants her to do it because you have spent a lot of time, more time with him, working from home and stuff. But what makes me smile is, and it comes from repetition, right? When I come home and I started saying, "Give me a hug," and I think in his brain, his brain works where repetition and practice is what
Right.
he recognizes. So I started telling him, "Give me a hug," when I come home, and I hug him. And before it was, he give me a little hug, his hands up to his side, and I say, "And squeeze," and he squeeze, give me a kiss, and and maybe it was 2 3 months ago that I was pleasantly surprised, where I came home and I didn't say it and I forgot, and he says to me, "Where's my hug?" Right, and that was really heartwarming. It was shocking. It was everything, but it felt incredible. So that was
Right.
that's what I remember more than anything else. Mhm.
Okay. Which makes me a little jealous, by the way.
Yeah,
Because he doesn't
yeah,
do that with
you have
me.
to get it.
I sit and
Yeah,
I watch him. As soon as you come through the door, he gives you that hug and that squeeze, and I'm like, what about my hug and my squeeze? I don't get that.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
actually, I love that. That's really, that makes me happy to see him do that. Independently, with no, he just does it because you guys been, practicing it together. Um, so our children have a way of changing us, right? Um, what has been something that Aiden taught you as a, taught you about yourself?
The biggest thing that I mentioned earlier is patience, right? I had
Right.
no idea that I could be patient. I I was concerned, very concerned, 10 years ago. I even questioned myself. I wonder what I'd be like as a father, if I would be, short. My fuse would be short. Like when I'm playing soccer sometimes, and it hasn't been. That goes to show that whenever you're deliberate and you tell yourself something over and over, even if it's contrary to what you have been all your life, you can do it. And it hasn't even seemed to be that difficult, because I've just been telling that to myself over and over and over. And I've really surprised myself, and I'm very happy about how patient I've been. That's been the biggest thing for me.
Right. Right. It's amazing how, a child can shape a whole family structure. How do you think autism has changed us as a parent or as parents?
Okay. Um, I think when it makes you a lot more um, focused on family and
Hmm.
raising a child together. Because a lot of times when you get, we're individuals, and
Right.
we need to um, we live our own lives separate as well as collectively with our
Hmm.
partner and our child. Um, I think having a special needs child makes you focus a bit more. If you're um, if you have that child and you're both focused on getting the best for your child, that would include you being more family oriented as well, right? So I think we're sometimes we could be our own individuals, and maybe we should be more family oriented. The
Mm.
having a special needs child facilitates that, right? So it pushes you towards that more than if
Okay.
you're was a whatever it wasn't that wasn't the case.
So is it safe to say that it has brought us closer? Has it challenged us, or a little bit of both?
Mm.
Because you know
It's a little
sometimes
bit.
having a
It
special
definitely.
needs child can actually tear a family apart
It,
because it's
yes, it
hard.
definitely
But do
can do
you
that.
think it
Sorry.
brought us closer, or challenged
No,
us?
I think it challenged us, but it also brought us closer. I think and every child is different, right?
Right,
I don't think Aiden has been that difficult, right? He doesn't elope like as badly as others. He may, but for the most part, he doesn't. Um, and the few things that he likes is in and around him, and even when they weren't there, he would
right,
make do. You'd find things that interest him. So it hasn't been as much of a challenge as I've witnessed of
right.
others. But still a challenge nevertheless, right? And
Yes,
everybody deals with a challenge differently. Some people that 1% challenge, but for them it feels like a million. And some that has a challenge at the level of a million, for them it feels like a one. But I can't say it's been an interesting journey.
I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Hi, I'm back. I think we had a little technical difficulty. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Um,
I was saying,
yes, go
I was
ahead.
saying for some parents, it takes them maybe 6, 7 years, for some even longer, the whole teenage years, to really look into if there's a problem, right? Because the acceptance is really difficult and challenging for many. We took it head on very early because
Right,
I I I, I am I try to take myself out of it and see what's best for the child, and what's best for your child is to find out early enough and get help. And I believe that comes from being pragmatic, and it's not easy. I'm not saying anyone's to blame. It's just who you are, and that's a
right,
coping mechanism for some. It's tough to accept, but we pretty much once we saw an inkling of a possibility, we explored it, and as a result, we were able to get an early start on
right,
getting them help.
right. And of course, part of this journey has been, learning how to navigate the school system. So when it comes to, school meetings, evaluations, IEPs, what has the experience been like from your perspective?
Well, you have done most of that, and I've been um, not as heavily involved, but involved enough to know all that's going on. So I give you credit for all of that, where um, you've organized everything, you've kept all the paperwork, and made sure all the appointments are kept, and everything. I've taken him to one or two of the appointments from very early, even when we were doing the diagnosis. But you've led in that area, and I've just played a supporting role, which again I'm happy to, because that's the thing with parents unions. Everybody has a
Right,
role, right? And
right,
you designate that role, um, and it's fine. I don't believe none is any more important than the other. They all are necessary, and when everything is done properly, they all have that synergy, come together and form the whole that fit like this. So my experience with the schooling and stuff, it's I've been to the meetings, I've spoken to the teachers, but you have taken the lead and you have kept me abreast of everything that's happened whenever you speak to them or whenever we go. So it's been I'm not for lack I haven't wanted or not been aware of whatever is going on. So we've had a pretty smooth transition as far as communicating with teachers and keeping on top of everything school related.
But do you think fathers sometimes feel left out of the process though? Because even though you were
Uh,
brought in because, I try to bring you in into everything, but do you think, I feel like because it's so much, because it's school and it's meeting and it's this, do you think they probably be like, someone else do that because
well,
it's paperwork, meetings, and all that stuff? Do you think fathers sometimes feel left out
well,
of that
no,
part
I
of
think
it?
uh, well, people, right? It depends on what's the strength of the couple. Maybe typically the women are more inclined
Right,
to keep the paperwork and stuff like that, and are more attentive to that kind of detail. So on average, maybe I would say fathers are typically left out, but it's really up to the father, right? Because if you're like that and or you follow up and stuff like that, then you would be just as involved. It really
yeah,
comes down to the individual, and maybe it's just because the women are more inclined to do that. But if you have such an inclination as a father, I don't see there's nothing stopping you other than scheduling.
right.
Maybe if you have work schedule and she doesn't, but if it was the other way around, then you may be the one as a father doing it, and the mother would be you'd be including the mother in conversation.
So on that note, what advice would you give fathers about being involved in the IEP meetings? Because let's say they're not, there are
Oh
fathers out there that are not, don't want to be, feels like it's too much meetings, it's too much paperwork, it's too much. What advice would you give them?
no, it's really they're really great because it really gives you an understanding of how your child processes stuff because you're doing this for the first time. You have no idea. The professionals are there, and I get it. You're gonna have some of that are overzealous, and they will say many things, but they don't know your child also. And you could take some of what they say and apply it because you have seen your child every day. But the
Right,
information, there's no bad information, right? There's no bad information. All the information is really good, but you just need to, it just may be too much, and you can never complain about having too much information. You just take what is applicable to your child and your situation. And
right,
so I would say to the father, don't miss out on these meetings, whether it's now with this technology, we have Zoom meetings, you hear what the speech person saying, and they're telling you what you should reinforce at home. These are little things that help,
right,
right? They want you to he's taking things that he's not supposed to take. They want you to reinforce it by doing this because they also give little tidbits that you wouldn't have any idea.
no, right,
Oh, no, and they from their 20 years of helping kids and helping parents, they are giving you great ideas. So it's something that you should absolutely embrace. Yeah, but I mean, just like anything else in life, right? You reach out and you lean on people for for advice in whatever it is that they are specializing in, right? Whatever it is that they are professional in, you lean on them. You don't have to take everything, but you take what's applicable because you know your
right.
situation more than they do.
And this is why we stress that the parents are a part of the IEP team because they bring a lot that the teachers don't know. You're
Yeah,
sharing, parents are
absolutely.
sharing what the child is doing at home. The teachers see the child at school. So that's why parents are a part of the IEP team and they're supposed to be involved as much as possible. We've learned a lot over the years. If there's a father that just found out today that his child has autism, what would you want him to know?
I want them to know to just be patient. Um, your child may not learn or do things as quickly as all the others out there, but they also do some things faster, right?
Right,
They're especially in different ways. They pick up things in different ways. They process things different. Just be patient. Find out what it is that your son, your daughter, what it is that they do well. Encourage that. Whatever it is that they don't do as well, you work on that, right? Every day that you're with them. If it's their communication, you correct them each time. I mean, Aiden, I just tell him something, and 10 seconds later, doing the same thing again. Is how he is, his attention span. I mean, every kid's attention span is small, but I feel like his is even worse. He just tell him close the door, and he walks and pick up his hat, comes out, doesn't close the door. He just keep at it, right? So
Right.
patience. If
Right.
I can stress anything, it's patience. Because it's really patience that, even with regular kids, it's patience, lack of patience that makes parents get frustrated and upset. Because you just told them this, you just told him that, I just told you to do this, right? And we're impatient with each other as adults. Just
Mm-hmm.
imagine with the kids growing up. So if it's one thing I'd say, it's patience.
Okay. I hope someone that's watching really holds onto that advice. Also, you mentioned earlier, we spoke about, the future, and what do you think about Aiden's future? What do you hope for him? I know you mentioned earlier that you want him to be self-sufficient. Um, is there anything else that you hope for him?
Well, yeah. So happiness, right? Happiness looks different to different people, right? In addition to being independent, I want him to take a road that he is happy, that he is pleased with himself. And because in today's world, well, not just today, but it's always been like this. Um, they tell you, the stats tell you that 90% of people do not get jobs in what they go to school for. So we're merely existing, right? Some people are unhappy. At 40, they change what they're doing and do something else. Some people, maybe the average person, is okay with what they're doing and they make it work. I don't want him to do something that he's not happy with and end up later on having regrets. So
Right.
I want him to be independent. I don't want to force anything on him that he's not pleased with himself. And again, sometimes you can't get everything right, meaning it's going to be up to him ultimately, right, to choose what he likes. Because sometimes people, what they like changes. What are you going to do about that? But what I want for him is, in addition to his independence, is to not just have ambition, but to be happy in where your ambition takes you.
Right. I want us to end on something a little more personal. And that is, what's one thing you want Aiden to know? Even if he doesn't fully understand it today, but what is one thing that you want Aiden to know?
Um, I wanted to know that whatever he chooses, he'll have our support, right? Whatever he's going through, he's gonna have our support, regardless. We like to throw around the word unconditional, right? But that is something I truly believe, especially as parents. At some point, you cut the umbilical cord and go out on their own to figure out the world, right?
Right.
With Aiden, it might be a little bit different, and he will need him to understand that the support from home will always be there. That's not something that is negotiable that you have to worry about. So go out there and live your life with some purpose, have some ambition, but don't be afraid. Fear, yeah, and that's something that I forgot to touch on. The problem with
Right.
many times as adults and parents, it's fear that really cripples us,
Yes.
right? Fear of the unknown, the fear of not being average and doing what all the other kids are doing. That's what really cripples us. Fear of what others will think about us, fear of what others will think about our kids. I want him to not have that kind of fear that really cripples him from experiencing life and going out and living to the fullest.
But do you think he has that fear right now? Because I don't think he
Oh,
does.
no,
I
absolutely not. Absolutely
Right.
not. He lives with reckless abandon. He has fear of
Right.
nothing. But at
Right.
some
And
point,
I think that's where the fear comes in for parents, because we recognize
yeah,
that they have no fear, and then you're
yeah,
like fearful for them.
yeah. So you just have to balance it,
Yes.
right? I've seen parents being, you know, I go to the beach all the time. Parents are so afraid. You can't allow them to go more than an ankle in the water, and they're right beside them holding his hand. You know, I try to give them a little bit more leeway, but that also comes down to the parent. How athletic are you? How fast are you?
Right.
How physically able are you? Right? And
Right.
so you have to. I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong, because if they're not physically able, then they can give him the leeway that I can give him. Luckily,
Correct.
I've been able to and allow him to really explore
Right.
what he likes in himself.
So I would like to answer that question as well. One thing I want Aiden to know is that mommy loves him so much. He amazes me every day. I'm so proud of you know, how his brain works. And I want him to never forget that, we'll always believe in him. And, you know, we love him so much. And so, in closing, I want to thank you for sharing your heart with us today. I know it's probably wasn't easy, but I also know that there are families and fathers that watching that who needs to hear from your perspective. If today's conversation encouraged you, I've created a free Father's Day Perspective Parent Toolkit to help families reflect, celebrate their child's journey, and just to have meaning conversations together. You can download it from the link below. Remember that every family's journey looks different, but no family has to walk it alone. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next episode of Navigating Special Education Together. Thank you.
You're welcome. The pleasure was all mine.